know Philadelphia as the city of brotherly love, but recently it has been recognized in a less desirable light because of trash. Illegal dumping is a growing concern among residents, especially in lower income neighborhoods. Hello and welcome to the Temp. I am Cameron Scrivens.
And I am Nate Stanley. Forbes rated Philadelphia the dirtiest city in America in 2020, beating out Detroit, Michigan, and Kansas City, Missouri. Residents are wondering what might be the solution looking forward in order to change the city's ranking. The Temp's Media Alonzo spoke to some people who were willing to share their frustration.
For years, Philadelphia has been known as one of the largest and oldest cities in America. But recently it has been recognized for another reason.
To know that Forbes rated us the dirtiest city in America, I took it extremely personal.
Terrell Hagler is a sanitation worker who thinks the city's trash problem is more complex than people might think.
The way garbage collection ties into poverty is because we, as a city, we just tend to care less about those neighborhoods. A block gets missed, and a cleaner neighborhood, you have 6, 7, 10 neighbors calling 311 in the sanitation department saying that our block wasn't picked up, versus Kensington, where if a block gets missed, it's, oh, they do this all the time, we don't care, and then it starts to pile up.
Illegal dumping is the disposal of waste in unpermitted areas. Vacant lots, alleys, street corners, and neighborhood sidewalks are common sites for this act.
One of the dumpers had said that it's cheaper for them to unload here than to pay to actually dump.
If it's certain toxins that they're dumping, those toxins could go into the ground. And yeah, you can remove the items, but whatever is there is seeping in the ground, especially if it's near our sewer systems and our waterways. So, you know, it can do a lot of effects overall from mentally, wellness, and health-wise.
One issue residents deal with is the social conditioning a neighborhood undergoes in the aftermath of a neglected dumping site.
The dumping gets picked up and immediately replaced. So did they clean it up? Is it clean? No. Did they put resources into going and getting it? Hopefully.
One thing I could say about this neighborhood is there's a lot of people who put in 311 requests to get the trash removed, and we do get good response from 311 and from the streets department. But it's just like it's a constant thing.
Philly 311 is the city site and mobile app where you can submit a form to have dumping removed. But Russell Zerbo says he has learned a lot in his experience with filling out requests.
Vacant lot reports take a lot longer. There's a really long list of vacant lots that need to be cleaned in the city, and it costs about $1,000 for the city to do one of those cleanings. So they kind of take their time in doing it. But if you report something as being on the street or sidewalk, it's a totally different list. It's way more urgent. If there is a shred of a dumping on a street or sidewalk, report it as the street or sidewalk. Don't report it as a vacant lot.
As the trash continues to pile up, Philadelphians are calling for elected officials to intervene and offer them solutions.
Not enough elected officials care about it for it to be an issue in the city.
In more affluent communities, it's easier to be together. It's easier to coordinate reports. You have more of an ear to your elected official, and it's a lot harder to do that organizing in communities that are already disenfranchised.
So there should be more of that incentive that, you know, if you bring your garbage, you get maybe a discount off of your taxes, or you get, you know, $10 for 10 pounds or however thing, like some kind of initiative to keep your neighborhood clean.
That's all contracting trash related to all of this development.
When illegal dumping occurs, the assumption is the residents are at fault, but there has been another offender.
We didn't see this dumping until this development booms happened here.
These developers come in, they get the house for cheap, they don't know the neighborhood, and their whole thing is to cut costs at all. What they do is they scout the area, they find a lot, and they dump it.
This is your development site, this is your demolition site, you take care of it. You know, you make sure the trash is taken away, or you clean out the trash that's in front of you. They don't care because they're coming in and cashing out.
For Cynthia Barnes, she believes a proactive approach can help clean the streets of her neighborhood and others, regardless of who the perpetrators are.
It's a two-sided coin. where the togetherness is that everybody wants to get rid of it. But does everybody report it? You know, we do have some that are reporting it and some who are probably contributing to it.
Philadelphia has administered close to 580,000 COVID-19 vaccines to those eligible through phases 1A and 1B. The new vaccine has opened up in Torresdale, making it the city's 7th mass vaccination site. And if you have yet to get a chance to get the vaccine due to your ineligibility, you may be in luck because President Biden directed all states to make every adult eligible for the vaccine starting May 1st, though it may remain unclear if this is feasible.
Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf announced newly expanded restrictions for businesses. Gyms, malls, and casinos can increase indoor capacity to 75%, up from 50%. Purchase of alcohol without the purchase of food will also be permitted at bars. These changes are expected to go into effect April 4th. But Philadelphia will not follow suit. With over 1 million positive COVID-19 cases in the city and rising hospitalizations, Health Commissioner Dr. Thomas Farley says it cannot adopt the same relaxed restrictions as the rest of the state.
Philadelphia's schools reopened on March 8th after reaching a compromise with union leaders. Students now have the option to attend school in person for 2 days out of the week, with virtual learning still very much embedded into schooling. Worries about disabled students and how their educational experience has changed are at its height. Reporter Kate Kowalski has more on the story.
Online learning due to COVID-19 has affected many lives, including students with disabilities. I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Wendy Ross to see how it's truly affecting them.
Having an intellectual disability is the number one risk factor for getting COVID. And dying from, it's the number 2 risk factor just below age for dying from COVID.
It's never easy to understand what someone is truly going through. Jen Townsend's son Tyler has been affected mentally and physically with disabilities since he was born. Switching to online schooling was anything but easy for Tyler and his family.
Children with special needs, I mean, you're doing 100% of everything with them, so we would have to log them in. We would have to get him on at that time. He doesn't have the capability to do that. If there was any supplies that we needed, we had to prepare, which was another challenge.
Online learning is not only making Tyler miss out on his education, it's also making him lose crucial daily life necessities as well.
Not receive any of his physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech therapy in person. They did it all virtually. And with Tyler not being very high functioning, that's very difficult.
Tyler is one of many special needs students struggling through this pandemic. Jen and her family are doing their best to stay positive in hopes to get their son back in school.
I think a lot of these children like their routine. They like their daily structure of, we're getting on the bus, we go to school, we do this at this time. The physical therapist actually comes into the room and moves their arms and legs, and speech therapist and occupational therapist. It is very difficult to do that from home.
Students and families like Tyler's are doing their best to adjust to online school and hoping for a safe in-person return soon. This has been Kate Kowalski reporting for the Temp TV.
Temple announced its plans for the fall 2021 semester, which includes a primarily in-person class roster. This was announced shortly before Temple released an update on commencement and vaccinations. Graduating students will have the option of an in-person ceremony either outdoors or inside a campus building, depending on schools. Temple has begun administering Pfizer's vaccine to eligible students, faculty, staff members, and city residents. You can fill out an interest form for this vaccination at redcap.templehealth.org.
Students who are experiencing financial hardships are struggling to balance both work and school. The challenges they face are even greater now that we are living through a pandemic. Reporter Susan Thomas got to speak to some students who are trying to find ways to keep up with payments.
Sabina Pawlowska is an international student from Poland. She's been attending college in the U.S. since her freshman year and has always been paying for all college expenses. She's not eligible for scholarships because she's a foreign student.
It's hard to both work and do school, especially when I work 40-45 hours a week. But I feel like that's my only way to get through college.
Is it going to be easy? Not always, but these kinds of situations require what in psychology we call resiliency.
I had to schedule my target days around my internship days, and it was very difficult because it was interning, target, and school. So I had to find time to study, but really was just prioritizing.
Victoria's mother was able to help her up to a certain extent.
she would help me with the majority of things that I needed help with when it came to, food and getting my hair done and things of that nature. I really had to pick up the slack.
Austin Komen has worked internships and jobs while attending Penn State. His on-campus student union job at the Hub Robeson Center helped pay for college.
In my mind, it was better to sacrifice some free time to have, a safety net or some kind of financial security.
Reporting for the Temp, I'm Susan Thomas.
Now, Nate, I am dying to know, have you received your stimulus check yet?
I have, and it went straight to my tuition. Don't tell Temple Financial Aid. But people have been spending their stimmy on all sorts of things. The Temp decided to find out more in this edition of As Heard on the Street. Nicole Majette takes a trip to Center City to learn more about where Philadelphians' stimulus checks are going.
Another round of stimulus checks are already on the way for millions of Americans, with 90 million payments already sent. In this segment of As Heard on the Street, I'm in Center City asking people how they plan to spend their stimmy.
So I don't plan on spending it, but I'm more just saving, just in case anything happens. I think it's been a crazy year for everybody.
Yeah, I think I'll be saving it as well and using it for rent and other important things.
I'd probably put some food in my stomach, pay rent.
Well, I already spent a good portion of it at Aerie and Forever 21, but I definitely plan to save mine as well, half of it at least to go towards like living and bills and stuff. But other than that, why not spend it?
So I plan to buy call options, and I plan to get my call options from Wall Street Bets.
I take a cruise.
A cruise where to?
Alaska. A 7-day cruise to Alaska. Why not? They paying for it.
President Joe Biden has been in office for just a little more than 2 months. He has signed over 40 executive actions, some of which regard healthcare, the environment, equity, the economy, COVID-19, and immigration. But the administration is prioritizing getting the COVID-19 vaccine to every American. President Biden has already surpassed his goal of having 100 million vaccinations in his first 100 days in office. On only day 58, the goal is to have 200 million Americans vaccinated by day 100.
After this break, we will be diving into recent mass shootings that have devastated our country.
And should police respond to mental health crisis calls? We explore all of that and more when we get back.
What to expect when you're expecting.
Like here.
A teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey.
Ready for the... Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
On March 22nd, 10 people, including a police officer, were killed in a shooting in Boulder, Colorado. The shooting happened at King Soopers grocery store at around 3 p.m. while customers were waiting in line for their COVID-19 vaccines. The shooter used an AR-15 style rifle. This shooting, along with the ones that took place in the spas in Atlanta, have people calling for stricter gun legislation.
The fatal shootings that occurred earlier this month at 3 different spa locations in Atlanta could test the new hate crime law in Georgia. This law will be worked on by local and state officials as the trial for the shooters unravel. 6 of these deceased women were of Asian descent, but the shooter claims it was not a racially motivated killing.
From one tough story to another, Christian Hall was a 19-year-old man shot and killed by Pennsylvania State Police late last year. He was going through a mental health crisis following a breakup and was standing on an overpass in what appeared to be preparation for a suicide attempt. Reporter Tom Reese decided to investigate the incident further and whether or not police should respond to mental health crisis calls.
Stop killing us! And stop sending civil affairs so you can make it sterilized!
Voices were loud in response to the police killing of a 19-year-old Chinese American in the Poconos.
For Christian, say his name! Christian Hall! Say his name! Christian Hall! Say his name! Christian Hall!
A group of protesters gathered at Dilworth Park in Philadelphia last month to raise awareness about Christian Hall's death and to stir a call to action. The Hall family wants the case referred to the Pennsylvania Attorney General because they don't think Monroe County will play fair.
You have the district attorney
who works closely with the state troopers out here, how objective is he going to be?
Initial reports stated that Hall was pointing a gun at state troopers on December 30th. But a video released some 5 weeks after the incident paints a different picture. It appears Hall had his hands up when police opened fire.
No one has owned up to the false reports that they put out immediately. They claimed my son was advancing on them with a gun.
During a town hall meeting with the Asian Pacific Islander Political Alliance, Hall's parents talked about their son. Faye and Gareth Hall adopted Christian from China when he was an infant. His parents say he was an outgoing, funny teenager who had created tight bonds with his extended family. But recently he struggled with depression after a breakup. He was scheduled to take his driver's license test on January 9th. That was the day of his memorial service.
Christian had many plans. I don't think that he planned on ending his life that day.
What was needed was a medical response to a medical emergency.
Now, over 2 months after the incident, the Hall family is still looking for accountability.
I would like to see some ownership. We have not heard anything from anyone.
Dr. H. Gene Wright also spoke at the town hall.
Between 2013 and 2019, 7,066 individuals of color were killed by police across the country.
Wright said that police co-responses to 911 calls with mental health professionals are needed to ensure this trend doesn't continue. David Ayers agreed. He said that when communities call for help, they don't only need police on the scene. According to him, an ideal reaction to a 911 call would be
to identify needs and to begin to facilitate that connection to services that's really indicated rather than a purely law enforcement response.
In Philadelphia, the police killing of Walter Wallace Jr. last October sparked similar outrage. Wallace was armed with a knife, but his family said he struggled with bipolar disorder. Krista Caceres is the president of the Monroe County NAACP. She said now is the time for action against police violence.
It's not enough anymore to be angry. It's not enough anymore to be, an internet, activist. It's time to get some skin in the game, you guys.
Fourteen jurors have been selected for the trial of ex-Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, who is being charged with the killing of George Floyd. Opening arguments have begun, with the trial expecting to last a total of 4 weeks. Portions of video footage of a 2019 arrest of Floyd will be shown in court in an attempt to show similarities between his behavior when approached by police. George Floyd was killed in May of last year after Chauvin kneeled on his neck for at least 9 minutes, sparking outrage across the country, and the entire world called for racial justice and police defunding were demanded.
A painful reminder of the case that had many of us glued to our TVs, waiting for the next development. We'll be sure to stay up to date on this trial as it continues.
Yes, we will. And next up on the Temp, we will be talking about Philly tourism revenue losses.
And why the pandemic has folks flocking to the suburbs. Stick with us.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
The tourism and entertainment industry in Philadelphia has suffered some losses since the start of the pandemic. Several hotspots like museums, historical venues, and popular local restaurants were faced with revenue challenges. As businesses begin to reopen, what is in store for the industry moving forward? Here's reporter Renata Kaminsky with the latest.
The arts and entertainment industry is among the ones that was devastated by the lockdown. The Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts had expenses to make sure that the art pieces were being preserved while the museum was closed in 2020. In response to COVID, the museum also did a student exhibition after the reopening.
as an artist, how they see COVID, how they're interacting with it, what they've gone through with their family or with their personal lives.
Music venues suffered because the sector was the first to close and will be the last to reopen.
And until everyone feels that enough people have been vaccinated, that it's safe to be elbow to elbow and dancing and having fun without masks, people aren't going to come.
NIVA, the National Independent Venues Association, lobbied Congress and raised the money for the Save Our Stages Act to benefit a variety of business in the entertainment sector. Unlike music venues, the Philadelphia film industry was able to return with small productions last August because of a detailed COVID plan. The city lost a lot of money when sets were shut down and studio lights turned off.
The producers of actually most of the shows decided that they didn't want their crews in Philadelphia because it seemed like a more dangerous place.
As we just saw from Renata's report, many restaurants have been struggling to stay open during the pandemic. But one restaurant located in South Philadelphia called Anastasia Seafood has been pulling through.
Our business changed, and I think that's important. I know society has changed, but our business has changed as well.
If it weren't for the fresh seafood market the restaurant provides, staff members say staying open would have been an impossibility.
Living in the city is great, as we all may agree with, but when you have a family and you're quarantined in a small apartment, it may not be as practical. That's why recently there's been a trend of people moving to the suburbs for more space. Here's reporter Camille Jones with more on what seems to be an exodus to Philly's neighboring suburbs.
For many, this past year has been more hectic than they could have ever imagined. From the global pandemic to civil unrest, a presidential election, and for some, the big move to the suburbs.
We just realized that we wanted a little more space, a little more access to green space.
The Siswick family is one of the 60,000 on average that move outside of the city every year. Their move from South Philadelphia to Bala Cynwyd was a bit spontaneous.
We very much did a pandemic move. If you asked us a year ago today if we'd ever moved to the suburbs, we'd probably laugh in your face.
While moving during the pandemic may be out of the ordinary, for suburban builder Sal Payon, he's used to having clientele from the city.
It's usually a second time home buyer, where they are living in an apartment or a condo or a townhouse already.
For the Siswick family, working from their cramped South Philadelphia row home made them realize it was time.
My office was the couch, and his office was the dining room, which I could practically
slash kitchen.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we're on all the calls and stuff, we had no space that we could separate from one another.
The study was a somewhat used room in a house. Now it's used often. The size of that study is important.
While many people are moving from the city to the suburbs, according to census data, about 27,000 people move from New York City to Philadelphia each year.
We're seeing a lot of this change fueled by the fact that companies are allowing their employees to continue and making larger promises for them to have a continued ability to work from wherever remotely.
Realtor Clay Schaefer doesn't believe change is just happening from the city into the suburbs or New York to Philly, but everywhere.
People are realizing that their homes are the most important places in their lives, and so they're reassessing what they need and want in those places.
Reporting for the Temp, Camille Jones.
You may have heard about beekeeping, but the hobby may seem impossible to conduct in a city such as Philadelphia.
Well, some people have found creative ways to become urban beekeepers. We'll have that story when we return. Stay tuned. United by Blue is an environmentally friendly local shop in Philadelphia that is devoted to cleaning up waterways. The Temp's Jack Harrison found out what project they are currently working on.
As businesses big and small have had to make adjustments to keep the doors open in the last year, United by Blue was able to stay open without compromising their unique mission.
Our mission is for every product that we sell to commit to cleaning up 1 pound of trash out of the oceans and waterways.
Since opening in 2010, United by Blue has gained a reputation for hosting community trash cleanup events across the country. But without being able to gather in large groups, they have continued to make a difference through education and encouragement.
So we've shifted to doing a lot of online education, encouraging like virtual cleanups where people are still going out and doing the work, but just on their own or in a small group.
Also partnering with Independent Blue Cross, they became a distributor of locally farmed groceries to those who are high risk and elderly.
That actually turned into a grocery business for us during that time, which really made us thrive.
Whether they are removing trash from the waterways or providing groceries to the community, United by Blue's selfless business model is the one to thank for staying open.
Do something more than just turn a profit. Exist to fulfill a purpose and a mission and to have and uphold values.
Reporting for The Temp, I'm Jack Harrison.
I don't know, Nate. I may just have to visit that shop. What do you think?
Well, I agree, Cam. Helping the environment and helping freshen up my wardrobe sounds good to me.
Definitely. Well, here's another environmental story for you. Urban beekeeping is a new phenomenon with city dwellers committing a lot of their time to helping save the bees and harvesting honey. The Temp's Julia Albertson spoke to some beekeepers about their commitment to this hobby.
Put the bees in the box and they do all the work. All you have to do is take the honey from them once or twice a year. I said, that sounds like my kind of work.
Since 1981, Norris Childs has been an avid hobbyist beekeeper. Now the president of the Philadelphia Beekeepers Guild, he tends to 18 hives of his own, selling various homemade products to the greater Philadelphia region.
Why should anybody in their right mind keep bees? Well, for me, the main reason was to make honey.
Under the label Wissahickon Honey, he also sells skin creams made from beeswax and berry-flavored mead. But to the hobbyist beekeeper and former Pennsylvania State apiarist Austin Martin, beekeeping is not all about the honey. He has been tending to his most recent hive for just over 1 year.
Started them around the beginning of the pandemic last year because I knew I was going to be stuck in quarantine, and I wanted to be able to have something to work on, something to keep me connected to the natural world.
Martin sees urban beekeeping as a way for people to engage with their surroundings and support green practices in the city.
I see countless times, I see people getting into the managing of honeybees, and they start asking questions like what is blooming when and where. It turns them into a passionate naturalist.
He's also a member of the Philadelphia Beekeepers Guild, a club dedicated to the practice of beekeeping in Philly communities.
And I see the Philadelphia Beekeepers Guild as a force of sort of creating a lot of people that are very concerned and passionate about the urban landscape and urban ecosystems.
As the weather gets warmer, both Childs and Martin look forward to a productive season with their bees. Reporting for The Temp, I'm Julia Albertson.
What a great story to end on, and that is going to do it for this edition of The Temp. As always, we thank you for watching.
And make sure to follow us on social media at The Temp TV or visit our website at thetemp.net. Stay well and stay safe, everyone. We will see you next time.